let's take a look at what the stories are saying on the Nigerian newspapers. I have with me in the studio journalist Dare Odufowokon and lawyer Jide Ologun. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for coming on TVC Breakfast. All right, we head straight to the papers now, and I begin with NewsDirect. Senate proposes November the 28th for 2020 budget passage. And on the front page of the blueprint, TRUST Kogi, 11th hour judgments won't affect polls. INEC. Yaga Africa attacks electoral body on flooded areas. Police Commission deploys 45 monitors. IGP warns on vote buying, other infractions. On the front page of the Daily Times, face-off imminent in Senate over anti-social media bill as opposition senators kick against the death penalty for hate speech offenses. Bill bizarre infringement on human rights, says Ozekume. To the front page of the Daily Trust now, Kogi governorship thugs cause chaos as IGP INEC boss attend peace accord. SDP wants election postponed. On the front page of the Daily Sun, Senate proposes death sentence for hate speech. Also considers life sentence, 10 million naira fine. Opposition lawmakers, lawyers, editors, activists kick. To the front page of the Vanguard, protesters storm DSS headquarters, want Sowore and Bakare freed. Journalists injured as DSS disperses protesters demanding Sowore's release. We were offered 1 million naira to suspend protest. DG Adeyanju Serap accuses security men of using lethal weapons on peaceful protesters. We'll be looking at that story shortly. And finally, on the front page of The Guardian, government charges 15 naira for multi-billion pipelines licenses. Gets 12.50 kobo, 12 naira 50 kobo per 1 kilometer for yearly renewal. All right, gentlemen, let's look at this story that has, there was a protest yesterday with regards to Sowore's release, and when the DSS came out to say that, or rather claim that no one had come for Sowore, that is why they are still detaining him. There's been so much arguments back and forth, even lawyers, and one wonders, is there a law that says someone has to come for an accused person before he is released? I don't know, perhaps you could throw more light on this, Jide.
After the court order declaring that he should be released on bail, the bail conditions have been perfected. So to say that nobody came for him is strange. He's not in a wheelchair, he's not paralyzed. Okay. He can find his way to wherever he is supposed to be, because I think one of the conditions is that it should be within the Abuja environment. And of course, we are used to the excuses coming from DSS, and it's just instructive this morning to remind us that the responsibility of the DSS is the intelligence gathering agency of the government, and the DSS is to protect the federal government of Nigeria against internal invasion, to ensure that we uphold and implement our criminal laws. And if the agency has turned around now under the executive arm of the government to disobey the rule of law, then we must be worried. But then it's in the character of the DSS. I don't just know for how long this will go on. And you saw how the protest was also dispersed, and Adeyanju has made an allegation that some sought to settle him with a million naira. It should be good to pursue that also, whether it's fake news, and he probably can come on that.
No, he came on the air. So, he was showing he was showing the money.
And of course,
I wonder if someone would want to do that, put his life at a risk for someone else like that.
My position is that there are better ways of getting things done. I recall that the president, when he went to the National Assembly to present the proposed budget, disclosed that the world is watching, and indeed the world is watching. There are a lot of human rights infractions in this country, and it doesn't really speak well in terms of reputation.
All right, let's bring Dari in now. What's your stance on this matter? Sowore not having someone to come take him, and then DG Adeyanju saying that someone asked them, gave him $1 million not to come out to protest. Now, that's a lot of people are beginning to analyze it in the terms of there is more to this than meets the eye.
Obviously, there is more to this. I would say perhaps on both sides. I am not a lawyer. I do not. I may not be able to say confidently that what the DSS is saying about nobody coming for Sowore is right or wrong. But I want Sowore released, largely because I think the federal government is making him unnecessarily popular.
Is that what it is?
Yes, that's my position. Sowore's action is not something we should commend. You don't seek to forcefully unseat an elected government anywhere in the world. It was a huge infraction on his part. He's a personal friend.
Was it forceful? It was just a protest.
His statements, we all saw it, we all heard it.
Okay.
The words he used. These are obvious things. If we put politics aside and we look at the weight of what he said, you will understand why the DSS went after him. You will understand why the federal government may want to prosecute him this much. But having said that, he was taken to court and he was granted bail. I would have thought that the federal government should do everything possible to ensure that he is released and sent back to his people so that this drama can end. A statement has already been made. You cannot incite the public against the government and get away with it. That we have established. It's been taken to court and nothing has happened. The law has taken its course, in my own opinion, to this point. If he has case to answer, let him be coming from home. But now, the DSS is saying nobody came for him. We are saying that ought not to be. I have not seen anybody that say, okay, tomorrow I am coming to stand for Sowore and take him home. That is what I have been waiting for. And that's why I say in Nigeria, it seems we have our own peculiar way of doing things. Why is the government or the DSS saying nobody came for him?
And why is nobody
showing up? Why is actually nobody simply saying, okay, we are here? Yes. The Adeyanju went there to protest.
Yes. He didn't go
to protest, not to tell the DSS that, look, we are here. What do you need somebody for? It's a simple thing in my own opinion. I'm not saying the DSS is right or wrong. I'm saying you can beat them in their own game in a very easy way. Since that is the demand they are making. Now, if you take a look at the Kanu issue, it was released on bail.
Yes.
Some people stood shorty for him, but he eloped. But for political resolutions, certain people will either be behind bars now on his behalf, or they will have been stopped from seeking their various elections. But you will all recall how that issue was resolved. The DSS may simply have taken a cue from that. That we release Sowore in the boats.
But then they could have spoken in language that people would understand.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That now
made it clearer.
I have a question.
They didn't, sorry, sir. They didn't need to make it more clearer than they have made it. Either of two things should have happened. No, you don't have a right to demand that somebody come for him. We are heading to court. I would have expected that by now, I would see somebody challenging that statement in court. Or, okay, we are here. Give him to us. If the DSS now fails to do that, then we will now see clearly that, oh, it is this DSS. Then talking about Adeyanju's 1 million naira. Well, I'll wait until it is proven. We've had many things like that. I'm not speaking for the government, but I'll wait until it is. 1 million naira to me is too small. It's too cheap.
But he said that he was told that more would come if that didn't happen.
Then he should have waited and collected more.
I have a question.
Quickly.
Who brought Sowore to the DSS? That is question number one.
He was arrested.
Exactly. So why is it difficult now to allow him to go or to return him?
Like he said, they might have taken a lift.
Because the bail conditions have been met. Then you let those who stand in.
Let me ask, sir, you are the lawyer here, sir. Let me ask. If Sowore is released today by the DSS to nobody, and he walks away from DSS, and he God forbid he gets missing.
His bail condition has been perfected.
God forbid
it
he
is
gets
also
missing.
an indictment.
There will be an indictment on the DSS.
Indictment on the government that cannot escape from this country. It's an indictment. That means
they're borrowing a leaf from what happened. That's what.
And again,
God forbid he goes missing.
I recall
who are we going to ask?
that in the days of Ruga, and some states rejected Ruga. A man threatened state government,
he was not arrested,
and DSS never went after him.
I think that is wrong too. But it has nothing to do with this issue.
You know, we are just asking for equity, respect for the rule of law, and good governance, so that we can develop as a people.
All right. Seeing that we are in a democracy.
Let's follow the procedure. I want somebody to just go up to DSS and say, "Give me Sowore." Let the DSS reject, then we'll be able to.
We have to leave it at this point. Gentlemen,
I've not had
to do all that.
Gentlemen, respectable say anything on that.
We have to leave it at this point. We have to leave it at this point because we have run out of time. Thank you for your contribution, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
It's time to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. I have with me in the studio journalist Dare Odufor and lawyer Jide Ologun. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
You're welcome.
All right, so we'll look at the newspapers this morning. We'll start with the NewsDirect. It says, Senate proposes November 28th for 2020 budget passage. That's in the NewsDirect this morning. The blueprint says here, Bayelsa Kogi, 11th hour judgments won't affect polls, says INEC. Yaga Africa takes electoral body on flooded areas. Police Commission deploys 4 to 5 monitors. RGP warns on vote buying other infractions. Daily Times says, face-off imminent in Senate over anti-social media bill as opposition senators kick against death penalty for hate speech offences. Bill bizarre infringement on human rights, says Ozekome. Daily Trust says here, Kogi governorship thoughts cause chaos as IGP INEC boss attend peace accord. SDP wants election postponed. The Daily Sun says here, Senate proposes death sentence for hate speech as also considers life sentence, 10 million naira fine. Opposition lawmakers, editors, lawyers, activists kick. And the Vanguard says here, protesters storm DSS headquarters, want Sowore and Bakare freed. Journalist injured as DSS dispersed protesters demanding Showore's release. We were offered 1 million naira to suspend the protest, says Deji Adeyonju. Serap accuses security men of using lethal weapons on peaceful protesters. The Guardian says government charges 15 naira for multi-billion pipeline licenses and gets 12 naira 50 kobo per 1 kilometer for yearly renewal. That's in the Guardian newspaper this morning. So we will stick with the story in the Daily Sun newspaper this morning, and it says here, Senate proposes death sentence for hate speech, also considers life sentence, 10 million naira fine. Opposition lawmakers, lawyers, editors, activists kick. Gentlemen, this story proposing death sentence for hate speech. What's your take? First of all, what constitutes hate speech?
Hate speech has legal definition, and these are speeches that can, create a deep expression of hatred, inspired attacks. For example, when a particular region issued a quit notice to another region, what that could cause. And then it has its political definition also. And generally, hate speech is not acceptable. But here we are now proposing death penalty, and we need to talk about death penalty. Death penalty is what we call capital punishment also, about capital crimes like terrorism, like treasonable felony, like child rape and stuff like that. But globally speaking, about 102 countries have abolished capital punishment, looking at the essence of punishment. And about 58 countries still retain capital punishment. And I had the privilege of reviewing the anti-kidnapping law of Lagos State, in 2017, that prescribed capital punishment for killing in the process of kidnapping. And my position was that strong enough to deter kidnappers? Because these kidnappers are like walking corpses themselves. So why don't we focus on how to decimate this crime? And if you agree with me, there are some who have pronouncements of capital punishment on them that are still alive till today. So why don't we, pay attention to other issues? And will that deter hate speech? And who will determine what constitutes hate speech? But I know there are laws that handle libel, slander, and things like that. For example, as at now, I know Chief Olusegun Oshoba has taken Senator Okurumbi to court for a case of libel. But I wonder what is behind this hate speech and fake news and things that the government. So I would just suggest that if the government is so interested in capital punishment, it probably should be directed at those who embezzle our enormous resources, and those who spend 11 trillion naira on fuel subsidy in 6 years, those who have thrown us into serious poverty. But it's a proposal, and thank God some are rising against it.
All right, let me go to this issue now. Is this necessary, looking at the fact that we're all on social media, beyond the normal news medium we all know, we're all on social media, and anything can be posted. And of course, we had someone here at one point, and he said your IP address can be sent to another area. But in all of that now, is this necessary to deter hate speech?
To deter hate speech, is it necessary? My answer is yes.
Okay.
Hate speech in itself may look a simple offense, but its implications, for example, if you spread the news or you make a speech that leads to genocide, that leads to people taking lives.
Just like the Rwandan example.
I mean, and then are we going to be looking at what you say or its implication? I think it should be the implications. So if you consider the implication of hate speech, one would say there is nothing you prefer as punishment that will be too much. However, let's look at it in this current situation. I want to appeal to the current Senate, especially. I would have said the National Assembly. But I think the House of Representatives is faring a little better. Okay. The current Senate should be very careful not to go down in history as one of the worst we've ever had. Their propensity to satisfy the executive arm of government is becoming too much. Yes, the presidency wants to guide against hate speech, and a bill or a request of some sort was sent to you. I think they are overdoing things. Because, like I said before on this issue here, the first thing we need to do is find out what hate speech will be. Then who will determine what hate speech is? If it is going to be government or its agencies that will just sit down and say this is hate speech, then we don't need any punishment at all.
So are you saying we need a different agency?
As will be not an agency. Okay. Stakeholders, because we keep creating agencies. Stakeholders should first sit down.
What will be the makeup of the stakeholders?
We always, when we want to discuss issues like this, we always know where we draw from. Hate speech should not be determined without journalists sitting down and contributing to and agreeing to what will be hate speech. Okay. Hate speech should not be determined without social media influencers. Some people are social media influencers now. That's a profession on its own in Nigeria now. There are bloggers. There are politicians.
Do we
the
think
opposition parties. These are people who are likely to be caught in the web of what hate speech would be. So we all need to sit down. Sitting down to agree what hate speech would be is one. Secondly, we also all need to sit down and agree that when you do this, it is hate speech and you will be punished. It would be too bad for us to just sit down, watch the Senate pass a law saying death penalty for hate speech. After we have passed the law, that is when we will now agree what hate speech is.
Wait, the question still looms. What constitutes hate? What determines hate speech? Because I can say,
let me give an example of hate speech. An example of hate speech is when somebody spoke in Nigeria years back that if he lost election, he will soak the baboons and dogs in blood. That is heavy. I think it should be a hate speech. What the governor of Kaduna State said recently towards the election, that the foreign observers who unduly interfere will go back in body bags. And I want to ask a question. What is the atmosphere that is prompting this sudden attention of hate speech? Is it because people are ventilating that you are getting feedback from the hardship generated by governance system, or that you are not comfortable with opposition when you were once on the other side of opposition and you said several things, cluelessness and things like that, that were just allowed to go? So if it's about the keen interest in developing Nigeria, I would rather advise that the best way to deal with darkness is to switch on the light. Can we begin to generate good governance content that people will sing about, that people will touch, people will eye mark, beyond earmarking? Because I suspect that this is just like a political protection so that I can do anything I like. For example, I am disturbed by somebody telling me trillions of naira spent of massive infrastructure, and we are still complaining about bad roads in the country and things like that.
That's hate speech,
you
right?
need feedback to excel in any assignment you are given. So if it constitutes hate speech, that Lagosians are complaining, for example, that the traffic is traumatic, this traffic can kill also, who determines, like Mr. Dari brilliantly requested, what constitutes hate speech? So can we focus more on delivering on the mandate of democracy, which is good governance, developmental things that we can experience, and the narrative will change? I'm still asking, why are the refineries not working in the country? Why should I not be able to ask that question? Why are we pumping so much money into it? Why did we lose about, I think about $1.8 billion to oil theft? Why do we have smugglers bringing ammunition into the country and we have customs there? Why do we have many questions that we can ask?
All right.
So who determines what hate speech is?
Now let me go to Dari. Dari, you mentioned that you want stakeholders to be involved in this,
determining
what hate speech. But for what we see here, even editors are against this death sentence.
Because they don't know what hate speech will be. See, listen, an average journalist, editor, a newspaper man, would not generally be against punishing hate speech. No. If we curtail hate speech, it helps our profession. But we are against this flagrant, obviously flagrant approach to it. We don't know what hate speech will be. Then you want to impose death penalty. What if tomorrow I write something somewhere, somebody somewhere just simply considered to be hate speech? I'm in for it. What we are against is this process. Death penalty or whatever. If we all agree that grievous actions or statements will constitute hate speech, if you sit down in your house and make statements knowing fully well they are not true, that triggers killings, then if you are to face the death penalty, I mean, nobody will be bothered because your action led to death.
Can I round this up? Look at the case of Sowore that is being held by DSS for a speech. There are laws covering that already.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for talking to us. Unfortunately, we don't have much time on this, but thank you so much for talking to us.
Nigeria.
Time to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. I have with me in the studio journalist Dari Odufor and lawyer Jide Ologun. Gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for joining us in TVC Breakfast. All right, we head straight to the papers, and I begin with the NewsDirect. Senate proposes November the 28th for 2020 budget passage. On the front page of the blueprint, Bayelsa Kogi, 11th hour judgments won't affect polls. INEC, Yaga Africa tasks electoral body on flooded areas. Police Commission deploys 45 monitors. IGP warns on vote buying, other infractions. On the front page of the Daily Times, face-off imminent in Senate over anti-social media bill, as opposition senators kick against death penalty for hate speech offenses. Bill bizarre, infringement on human rights, says Ozekume. And to the front page of the Daily Trust, Kogi governorship, thugs cause chaos as Inspector General of Police, INEC, boss attend peace accord, SDP wants election postponed. Senate, on the front page of the Daily Sun, Senate proposes death sentence for hate speech, also considers life sentence, 10 million naira fine. Opposition lawmakers, lawyers, editors, activists kick. To the Vanguard now, protesters storm DSS headquarters, want Sowore and Bakare freed. Journalists injured as DSS disperses protesters demanding Sowore's release. We were offered 1 million naira to suspend protest, Deji Adeyonju. Sarah accused the security men of using lethal weapons on peaceful protesters. And finally, on the front page of The Guardian, government charges 15 naira for multi-billion pipelines licenses, gets 12 naira 50 kobo per 1 kilometer for yearly renewal. All right, gentlemen, we'll look at the story on the front page of the Daily Trust, talking about the Kogi governorship poll coming up this Saturday. There's been several events, happenings or the other leading up to this election. But one thing that is a major source of worry for most people is the issue of security. Now, according to the reports, thugs caused chaos where they were to sign a peace accord. And one wonders, what is the essence of this peace accord at the end of the day? Because the essence is to forestall issues of chaos or activities like this. I'll start with you, Dari.
They were there to sign
a peace accord. They had signed one previously.
And they were
to sign another
last one.
Yes.
Before the election, to sign undertakings that will be of good behavior, there will be no violence. And then right there, thugs unleashed the terror on them. For me, it's a precursor of what is to come. From that, you can understand, one, that obviously the security arrangement is not enough. If
10 truckloads.
But then thugs still found their way in. And not only that, they caused mayhem. Even if you have 50 truckloads of people who don't know what they are there to do, people who don't understand the enormity of the assignment.
Is it about they not understanding what they are supposed to do?
So what happened? I'm not a security expert. If you have 10 truckloads of security operatives on ground, and yet some miscreants, no matter how harmed they may be, moved in and still disrupted the program where the IG was there.
Yes.
The INEC chairman, those are two prominent figures in the election that is coming. The candidates were all there.
Absolutely.
So I mean, where else do you need adequate security if not in that place? And if you told us that you are prepared for the election,
this shouldn't be happening.
That is part of the election. And it became obvious to all of us that you were not even prepared for that day. So I think they should see, today is just Wednesday. We still have more than 72 hours away to the election. They should take what happened at the meeting as a sign that they still have more to do.
So should they, because there has been calls for postponement, even the SDP, the candidate is asking for postponement.
We must have a culture of sticking to our own arrangement. I will not support postponement, but I will support INEC and the police. It is usually about security. They should look into it. And then if you look at what has been happening in Kogi, and also Bayelsa, threats have been flying all over the place.
They had said they had carried out a risk assessment as at yesterday, and we're wondering what this risk assessment is about with this incident now. Let's get your view on this. Let's see how it goes. Judy.
You know, in industrial psychology, we talk about reinforcement theory, and this is what we are seeing. The thugs are becoming more daring. My big question this morning is that all those who perpetrated terrorism and different kinds of violence during the 2019 election, what has happened to them? My second question is, who are these thugs working for? My third question is, why has democracy become such a desperate venture?
Big question, that was where we are going to.
In Nigeria.
Because
you now find out that even those who were coming to sign the peace accord did not come with peaceful hearts because of the level of desperation. And I heard a story that there was to be an amicable resolution, but the parties could not agree on the venue of the amicable resolution. So how do you come to resolution? So we need to visit the big problem we have. Democracy has become a business, a high-yield business venture.
How did we even get to this point where elections have become so a do-or-die affair?
Because
yesterday
it's a high-yield...
We had a headline saying battle for, you know, this position, the
Exactly.
House.
We also use the word battle.
We use the word
War.
battle. Why are we using such language?
War.
Because politics has been exalted above good governance. Let me use the brilliant example of the UK. One of the former prime ministers decided to resign because his position on Brexit did not fly. I mean, and you see that in our country, people are telling a leader that, please, we don't want you to lead us anymore. And the leader will be saying, I must lead you by force. You see, so, and you can see the amount of money we put into electioneering. The 2019 election got at least 186 billion naira officially. And you look at the luxury, the juices of office and everything, and you benchmark that with visible developmental achievements, which is very, very little. So I think we need to go back to understanding the concept of democracy, the concept of governance.
Some have
it's
said
all
that
about the
the
people
concept of
making society
democracy
better.
is alien to us, that it is borrowed.
No, it's not alien to
It's not.
us. It is the way we practice it here. You see, even before the coming of the colonial masters, most of our societies were democratic. But now, elective democracy, if you go back, I mean, if you go back to the Yoruba setting before, for example, when an Oba is to be enthroned, there are the kingmakers who decide, who votes, they vote. Then the Southeast Igbo land, it was a Republican environment. So we had our ways of practicing our own democracy. But this current democracy we have in our own Nigeria is too expensive, both ways. It is too expensive. It's so expensive for you to get elected.
We made it expensive.
We the people.
Yeah.
We the people made it expensive. Because if you are a politician and you're offering money to people, if there are nobody collecting it, you will not stop offering. So we all made it expensive. Now when you now get into office, it is also very expensive to maintain you in office. You live like a king. In other lands, the leader is not different from the follower. You see the Prime Minister of Britain walking to his office from his home.
And that is why we have all these battles and
But
wars.
here,
Is that why we have these battles and
yes,
wars?
because it's a battle because what you are going, there is a prize, a very big prize if you win the battle. If the prize is small, you discover there is retirees and primary school teachers who will be vying for positions. If you are to be elected into the House of Assembly and all you get is equivalent to the income of an assistant director in the ministry, you won't find people spending billions to get elected. But here, you know that once you are elected a member of the House of Assembly, you know, not just the chairman of a council, you are almost made for life. If we continue to have such a scenario, election will continue to be war. Election will continue to be battles. And once it is a battle, two people going into a battle, forget all this peace accord they are signing. They both realize a battle. They are prepared behind the scene. They have their warmongers and warriors ready to do justice to the battle on Saturday. But they will come there as peaceful fellows and start signing on dotted lines.
At this point now, what should security operatives do ahead of the Saturday election, looking at what happened?
What happened in the earlier election was that soldiers were drafted in. But I hope we not come to that level now. But then, to come to that level, the environment of insecurity must be created. But if we must develop as a people, we must exalt governance above politicking. And I hope that those who are driving the processes will do us that favor.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming on TVC Breakfast this morning.
God bless.